What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pass the Message, real talk and relevant life hacks for you to learn, apply, and share with your social circles. I am Jeff. Thank you once again for support, for watching, for listening, and you can do all of that by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube where you can watch this also. Follow us everywhere at Pass Message Show. Today, I got another one of my super special guests. This is Ayesha K. Faines, the founder of Women Love Power and writer extraordinaire. Ayesha, what's going on?
I'm so happy to be here and very warmed up.
Yes. And I didn't pay her to say that either, which is, so the economy is kind of wild right now. So I don't really got it like that. So I appreciate the kind sentiment. So before we begin, give us your elevator pitch about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Ayesha Faines, and I found a way to make a living being myself and sharing my unique views of the world and expertise. But I'm the founder of Women Love Power. It's an educational platform that helps women in terms of social power, soft power, sensuality, and personal mastery. I'm also a writer. I'm considered to be an expert in sort of feminine power and feminine values and how we apply that to our lives and to society. I'm also a dancer and a lover and a daughter and a friend and all those wonderful things as well.
It's a lot of things to be. And she does all of them. This ain't a front. She does all of them. So I tell you that much. So let's talk about your journey first off. I know that you were a reporter at one point. Yeah. You were on nightly news or local news or news. You were anchoring at one point and in the field, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, my journey really starts at 14 because that's when I decided I wanted to go into TV.
Okay.
And my high school had a public access station within the high school. And so we could take classes in TV and actually had a studio to learn on. So big ups to my high school, Columbia High School in Maplewood. That's how I really got my start. And then was doing little stuff in public access. And then I had my fellowship at CNBC when I was in college. And then I came out and started working in Florida. And you're right, I was reporting and anchoring.
So what made you make the transition from news to being an entrepreneur?
Well, that was a long transition. I think that back when I was in college, it's interesting because I ended up at CNBC. Okay. So not only did I learn about, it was a national newsroom. So obviously I learned how network television works, but I also learned about money, a lot about money, a lot about markets, a lot of, we were always interviewing titans of industry. And so I became very fascinated with entrepreneurship and how money is made at that point in my life. So I just kind of have to thank God for putting me at that interesting place where I was going to learn about media and about money.
Right.
And so I think the seed was sown there. And I knew my personality. I knew I was a creative. I knew I had a free spirit. And I knew that one of these days I wanted to go into business for myself. But I thought it would be way out in my 40s or 50s. Everybody always kind of thinks like, oh, I'll work and then maybe I'll start a little something. I never thought it would be this early on. But I had that very firm idea of Ayesha reporting in my head. And when I got out into the field, I realized that I loved telling stories. I loved interacting with people and hosting community events. But I did not love the newsroom. I just did not feel any particular connection to these stories. I felt like I was tap dancing. And I just knew that as a Black woman in the industry, the amount of hurdles that I was going to need to jump, I felt like I could jump, but I had to stop and think about, was it worth the jump? And so when they offered me another contract, because in TV, there's no real thing about firing and quitting. That's what people don't understand about media. It's just kind of like you have contracts and sometimes they don't offer you another contract and sometimes they offer you one and you turn it down. So they offered me another contract that was for an extensive period of time and I turned it down and then kind of had to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I did not have it all together. I did not know that this would be the end of the road. And so for a while, I wrote freelance. I did some social media work. I taught ballet. A lot of people know that. I was a part-time ballet teacher. And I kept pushing, and I kind of kept toying in TV, and I would do little jobs here and there, and it just wasn't the thing, but it was the only thing I knew. And this whole time I had this passion. I had this, very keen interest in women, in phenomenal women, in how certain women were able to lead these extraordinary lives, whether it was as a leader, as a socialite, as entertainers, as writers, as bon vivants. How were they living these lives that were so different than ours? And so I was always immersed in feminine history and psychology and all that. So long story short, I had a interesting run-in with the network, and I said, this is it. I'm going to make sure that I can always provide for myself, and I'm going to figure this out. And I essentially started Women Love Power. It was a little bit different in the beginning. It was supposed to be just case studies. But as I learned more and as I grew and started to discover my purpose, Women Love Power grew as well.
It's funny when I think about TV contracts, it's not that much different from sports.
It's kind of the same thing, right?
It is kind of the same thing because, you have a contract. The only thing is, in the very, very, very rarest of case, will you have a trade where, for example, I know there's been times where, let's say Monday Night Football, it goes to a new network and they want to keep the same person that was on the network. So they got to give them somebody else that they can use, and they switch them. That's happened in the very rarest of cases, but you get a contract. They can either terminate the contract, which is kind of like waiving in sports, or they could just let the contract run out and you're a free agent. They're just deciding not to renew your contract so you can go wherever you want. So that dynamic is really interesting, and that parallel. The other thing is you realizing while you were there that this wasn't your path, and you knew it primarily, from what I gather, because there were certain concessions you didn't want to make, and there was a rat race that you didn't want to run.
Yeah. I've always been a very spiritual person. I was having this conversation. My mom was helping me hang these curtains last night. I still can't do basic stuff, y'all. I'm gonna run a business. I can't hang curtains. Anyway,
she can do all this dancing and ballet, but cannot hang a curtain. That is what. That is life, boy.
Do basic stuff for me. Anyway, and I was telling her how even when I was a young girl, I understood grown-up things. I've always been very open to energy, to emotion, to feeling, to instinct. And so even when I was down there, there were times when I was having a good time. You're on TV, you're young, you got a paycheck, it's warm, the beach is down the way. It's not, it wasn't bad. But there was something inside of me that was not satisfied, and there was something that knew I would never be satisfied. Part of it was realizing that the newsroom was such a racist place, and that we were perpetuating so many negative narratives. And the funny thing is, I didn't watch news before I became a reporter. I didn't watch news while I was a reporter. And now afterwards, I still don't watch the news. I read my news, but news has always been so sensational for me, and I'm very sensitive to energy. So I cannot have people in my face saying, and next, live at 9. But, it's too much. It's too much. Like, everything is very life and death, and it's way too much. So I was literally on the news and still not watching it. So maybe that was the tip off too. But yeah, I knew in my soul that there was more. And when I turned down that contract, and it was hard because they kept pushing it, and okay, we'll give you more money, blah, blah, blah. And this, like, every time I thought about it, my stomach hurt. And I just was like, this is not it. And I knew that there was something else that I was supposed to be doing. I just didn't know what it was. And sometimes you're not really ready for your purpose. Sometimes you do have to get those calluses. You have to learn your life lessons. You have to go through these very specific experiences before your purpose can be revealed to you. And it was just one of those situations.
So what you mentioned about feeling that knot in your stomach and literally feeling sick at the notion of renewing your contract, it feels like what I call the fuck it moment, when you have a moment in your job where something happens and you're just you pause and you accept, internalize what happens and you allow it to experience it, and you just say, yo, fuck it, I'm out, I'm done. This is it. Like I've hit my limit and now it's over. So what was that moment for you?
In terms of, was there a specific thing, a
specific moment, or what was the culmination of a bunch of mini moments?
I think it may have been, I think I was just not happy. I think that it was like, I'm doing this. I thought this was the job I wanted. I don't want 10, 20 more years of this. And I just couldn't bring myself to sign it. Now, I was young and very naive as well. I didn't understand like how serious it was, because I was on their morning show. That was their bread and butter. And I was very good for that station. I was very popular. So for me, it was just like, I don't know, my stomach hurts. This is not it. But it was actually a big deal for the station for me to leave. Like I realized looking back on it, how hard they really kind of needed to keep me. I remember walking in and before the morning editorial meeting, and I sat down and the news director goes, oh yeah, so are you giving more thought about the contract? I was like, oh yeah, I resigned. I left the thing on your desk. I did not mean it crazy. Like, to me, it's just like, yeah, I resigned. I'm not signing it. And I was like, and she was like, and she like just saw a ghost, because I said it so casually, but it was casual to me. It was like, I don't want any more of this. So anyway, after that, I had a little bit of time left before, I really was out, and it was a little bit rough.
Yeah. I could only imagine. I
didn't know about that. I was too young,
Right. Because for you, it's working a job. I'm done. Yeah. I'm going on to the next thing. For them, they probably looked at, yo, we have a Black female anchor on our morning show and she's about to leave. What are we going to do? The fuck?
Yeah, it was, and that morning show was really, this is for a lot of news stations, their morning shows are their bread and butter, because even if you don't really it's kind of an older demographic that watches the evening news. None of us watch the evening news, but a lot of folks still rock with morning TV because it's on in the background while you're getting dressed, the traffic, the weather, Right. So it's like, to shake up a morning show that works and is number one in the market, it's killing it in the ratings. You really, it's not like I'm not replaceable. Of course, clearly you were able to replace me, but it takes time to find that right replacement. It's chemistry that morning shows have.
Right, especially where you have a lot of parents who want some adult conversation in the background while they're getting their kids ready for school or they're getting ready for work. It's a whole psychological thing that's behind it, and I think I could see why they were looking at you like they saw a ghost, because they saw that them dollars, the ad dollars, they saw them ratings, all of that was leaving with you and you didn't even know it.
Yes, and I also was also just young in the sense that and I think I've always been this way. I've always been very comfortable with huge amounts of risk. Like for me, if my heart says yes, I don't care who says no. The average person would not have left a television job on air with decent money and not even know what's next for them. And it was nothing for me.
Yeah, I see.
It's just, I've never been shook by money.
Right.
It doesn't faze me.
Right.
It comes, it can come, it can go. It doesn't faze me. If my heart is not there, my instinct, God, I know everybody listening is different, but for me, if God says it is what it is, then it is what it is.
So let's take it to, you found Women Love Power.
Yeah.
Right. And take me through some of the growing pains of starting that to get to where it is now.
To be honest, starting Women Love Power was the most natural and organic thing I've ever done in my life. I did not read any books. I did not take any courses. I did not ask anybody how to create a business. It is a thriving business. I'm not going to be so tacky as to say, how much is thriving, but it's a thriving business. And people ask me all the time, what do you do? I didn't follow anybody's advice. I didn't look at anybody else's platform. And there are many people who have tried to copy mine, but I did what I felt like I was supposed to do. So when it first began, it was just a platform. It was not out to make any money. And I was still, working, writing, freelance, things like that, to make money. And I just created this platform that looked at power from a feminine perspective, because conversations about power are always really intrinsically centered around masculinity. And I said, what does it look like when women exude power, in relationships and communities in the world and their careers? What makes these women dynamic and fierce and fly and all of those things? And so I started writing about feminine power, and I started creating videos about feminine power, about sexuality, about sensuality, about what we mean when we talk about feminine energy, because it is not this mystical woo-woo thing. It's literally a set of values and a mode of consciousness and way of relating to the world. And I was just doing that. And so I did that for maybe 3 years. I think I started in 2015, and I think 2018 is when I really made it a business. And as I was doing that, the Grapevine, I started doing on the Grapevine, and I started getting more people coming to the site, and I started getting invitations to speak and share my ideas. And then in 2018, I said, I want to create a course that really can get people together, like take these loose concepts of power and apply it to themselves, to their circumstances, and to their relationships. How do I do that? So I took 8 months and designed this course called The 5 Laws of Feminine Power and released it. And when I released it, it's been business ever since. Now I have 30 courses. I'm a thinking machine, and I'm always producing, and I'm always researching, and always, expanding. And I tour lecturing now on, feminine power. So I write, I speak, and I make courses that people have described as life-changing. But the whole time I'm guided by what I feel is right. Like, this is, I'm guided by, I think this is something I want to elaborate. This is something I want to elucidate, to help people with. This is this is the information I feel like the world needs.
Right.
I've never read a book or look at what anybody else is doing. I just follow my instinct. Mm-hmm. Now the growing pain is scaling. I have to find a trusty editor. Mm-hmm. That I need to, I can trust with very sensitive information that can't get out, and that is quick and reliable. So I have to do that, and I need to hire other support people. So now it's the scaling. I'm at a place where it's comfortable, but I absolutely have to scale, because it's just getting to the point where I check my emails and it's just so much, and it's a lot for one person. And when you become stressed, the creative instinct starts to dwindle because he doesn't respond well with stress. So that is the growing pains that I'm in right now, is just finding the support so I can continue doing more of what I'm best at without doing things that I don't have to do.
Isn't it refreshing that you can work within your purpose and make it a business, and all of those content related hurdles are easy to surmount because you're just doing what you do and you're just following your purpose, right?
It comes from a genuine love of what I do. You know me personally, so you know I'm a nerd. You know that literally if you ask me some random question, and anybody knows this, I want to pull up some random mythological factoid or some, some crazy. I'm legitimately a nerd. I have a TV. It's not even set up. Like, I don't watch TV. It's just there. It's not even set up. It's not even plugged in. Like, my mother just pointed that out. Like, you're so weird. I don't even watch TV. I literally read books for fun. So this is literally just me nerding out, but in a way that is giving people information that is very hard to come by and that we don't talk about, because for women, we're supposed to accept our lot and do what we're told. And, it helps people. And I think anytime that you can do something that comes natural to you in a way that helps other people, you got it. That's it. That's the secret sauce.
Yeah. I mean, and do believe she is a nerd, because we could be talking about why I'm waiting online for Popeyes and she'll pull out something about Aphrodite. And I'm like, I didn't even know those two things connected like that. But that's a skill. That is an ultimate skill. And that's the type of things that we like to talk about here, because you're living the mission of Pass the Message, where you're learning things, whether they can seem random to other people, but you have them organized in their random nature to serve a goal. And then you're sharing it with the people so that they're able to build up themselves. So I think that's all commendable. And that's just ill to think about, and it's something to aspire to. So let's talk about feminine power.
Sure.
What are the different, if any, the differences between feminine centric power and masculine centric power?
Sure. So, I mean, a lot of it is sort of two modes of consciousness, two ways of interacting with the world that ideally balance each other out. So if masculine centered power is egocentric, it's intellectual in the sense that it values the rational over the emotional and instinctive. It is assertive, it is aggressive, it is unemotional, it is production oriented. What I mean by production oriented is you see a tree and you turn that tree into a chair. Then that's, masculine power. The opposing force would be feminine power, which would be, instead of production centered, creation centered. So I see you turn that tree into a chair. Let me plant another tree. I see we're making too many chairs. Let me conserve these trees. It's birth centered, right? Versus death centered. It is more holistic, meaning instead of being focused, it's diffuse. It is sensual. It is instinctive. It is connected to the emotion, not in a way that's totally irrational, but it's connected to the emotional and the compassionate and empathic part of life. It is, again, just sort of human oriented and a little bit more compassionate. And so you have these two dual forces. It's also chaotic. I should say that masculine is more direct and masculine is ordering and making sense of things. Feminine is more chaotic. But the thing about it is you got to have something to order. So you need chaos to order, right? So the reality is these are two modes of being that exist in every human being, that exist in nature in every single way. But patriarchal societies tend to be not only man-centered, but masculine in the sense that they overvalue masculine modes of consciousness and suppress feminine modes of consciousness. So our ideas about femininity are not authentic femininity. They're ideas that have been given to us by a patriarchal masculine society. So when women really just want to tap into their power, for the longest time, it was be more virtuous, be more respectful, be more beautiful, or be more sexy. And it wasn't fitting. It was like I was trying this power on, and a lot of women are like, this is not fitting. This doesn't feel authentic. This doesn't feel me. And so one of the ways I help women come into their power is by exploring different archetypes that existed before patriarchy, helping them understand all the different ways that femininity can express itself in powerful ways that the world needs. But nonetheless, that is my long definition of what is masculine versus what is feminine. I have a little anecdote. So there's a myth about the city of Athens, right? And Poseidon, who was the god of the water and the god of the sea, and kind of he always wanted to be beyond the water. He was kind of like a salty god. Ooh, pun intended, because like salt water. But he was also like salty in the sense that he wanted more, right? So he vied to be the patron of Athens, and he had to go against Athena, who was the strategist and the goddess of strategy and war and diplomacy and all those things. And so the contest was give Athens a gift, and whoever gives Athens the best gift will get to be the patron of Athens. So Poseidon took his trident and he struck a rock, and what burst forth was a spring of briny water. Athena gave the olive tree. And the olive tree could replenish itself and could give wood, it could give oil, and it could give olives. So they said, well, we'll go with the olive tree and we'll make Athena. And so, of course, Poseidon got upset and he flooded the city. But beyond that, it's to me a great example of like masculine versus feminine power, because Poseidon used his might to create this spring. But at the end of the day, it was salty water that the people couldn't even drink. And Athena said, I'm going to give you this thing that not only replenishes itself, but can support you in multiple ways. And so to this day, the olive tree is associated with Athens and Athena, and also economic vitality as well. So
you knew you were going to get some type of tail from Ayesha.
Yes,
she was charging up the whole time.
Now we're set. I nerded out for that one moment. There
it's all good. That's what we're here for. That's what we need. It's those concepts that you talk about. It's almost similar to what alchemists talk about with spirit and soul. It's like the spirit is energy. It's aggression, and soul is more emotional and soothing. And thinking about what you said about the destructive nature, it's almost like that masculine power destroyed the concepts of the feminine power. So the femininity kind of had to rebirth and rebuild that over and over to stand alone. I don't know if I'm interpreting that right, but that's just how I'm thinking about it based on what you said.
Yeah. And the thing is, and this is an alchemical concept as well, but death and birth has to coexist. You can't just have birth and you can't just have death. You literally need both, because often death gives us the material for life. So they have to coexist. And it's just why we, have to have a balanced society. And one of the things we're seeing now, I think conservation is a great example, is we have whole forests devastated. We got issues with bees, and we have issues with, fundamental species that we need for certain ecosystems to thrive that are endangered species, because for far too long, we said death, 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 production, 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 and nobody was thinking about honoring life. But they have to coexist.
Right. And even discussing now what you're talking about with the feminine power and reclaiming that and wielding that as your own, I think about the discussions that happen every time, for example, a female artist like Megan and Cardi just dropped WAP, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's cyclical, right? Just like birth and death are cyclical, and ends and new beginnings are cyclical. This discussion is cyclical because every time a woman drops a raunchy song, there's calls for censorship. There's calls for more the death and destruction of morality, and there's some type of censure against them, right? Yeah. And then you'll have the other side that'll say, well, this is a reclamation of power and agency and owning that. And I just think it's interesting. This topic comes up a lot when it's women, but when it's men, and of course, I get it in the 90s. I don't think it ever comes up with men, does it? Pardon?
Does it ever come up with men?
Well, Uncle Luke may have a few anecdotes too, like when in the censorship era of the 90s. Okay. But even so, that was there's definitely racial dynamics in that too.
Absolutely.
But because, country music been talking about shooting women and hog tying and shit for generations.
Yes.
But, I'm eager to get your thought on that as to why that happens, and can women reclaim that power and wield the power in that way?
Yeah.
And overcome certain societal norms to just exist in that way.
Yeah. Well, women can do anything once they let go of the need for approval. We may never get to the point where we do what we do when there's no approval, but so that's the one thing. Technically speaking, you can do what you want to do, but it's just if you're waiting for somebody to give you a thumbs up, then that might not happen.
Right.
But it's when it comes to Black women, it's just so nuanced because number one, you're working in a patriarchal society that devalues sexuality, right? Wants to control sexuality. Sexuality is chaotic. It is powerful. It is an affront to masculine power. So we want to control it and have it on our terms, and we want to own it and dominate it. So that's the first thing. To see a woman out being sexual is an affront to patriarchal authority. One. Two, Black women get it doubly because for Black women, we were always defined against femininity. So we were defined as hypersexual in a way that could justify the systemic rape of our bodies, right?
Hottentot Venus and all of that, right?
Exactly. And so what you have within the Black community is respectability, right? And respectability was our response to the hypersexual tropes that we received. It was, this is how we were defined in slavery. And so we are going to be the opposite. We are going to prove ourselves. We are going to show that we are above this. But of course, respectability gets into colorism and all of that.
It's so like balancing by imbalancing the scale.
Exactly. And so now you have Black women who, if you're sexual, you're getting it not just from the patriarchal society, but then you're also getting it from the Black community that says you're setting us back because you're reinforcing these negative tropes. And so it's kind of like, where do we go? And I think for Black women, exploring and expressing their sexuality is radical and revolutionary. However, the difference is, are you centering your pleasure? Because our pleasure has never been centered. And a lot of times in the music industry, we have the hypersexualization, particularly of darker skinned women, but it's in a way where they are still commodities. And I think the real revolution and the real radical act and way of being is when you are like a Janet Jackson, who is in control, and every single lyric she has about sex is centered on her and her pleasure and her autonomy. It is on her terms. I think that's the difference. It's the sexuality without the degradation. Yeah, but it's hard for Black women to navigate.
Right. And then then it's the case where, just when you said that sexuality without the degradation, it's perception based too, right? Because I'm speaking as a woman. As a woman, when you own that and you exhibit that, some people may say that you're degrading yourself versus you owning it. So it's on one end, it's almost like a tightrope that you got to walk. But then, are you walking their tightrope, or are you walking your own path?
And that's where it comes with, you kind of have to do what you want to do.
Right. Yeah. At the end of the day, right?
At the end of the day, it's like, if you are going to live your life in the way you want to live it, then you have to do that without needing to satisfy any cultural forces or anything like that. Because, there's always going to be, if you're a woman doing what you want to do, there's always going to be somebody angry.
That's a fact. And I think that's something that's innate because of even as a man, right? It's almost like, yo, why won't you listen? Like, why won't you listen? Like, aren't you supposed to listen? And it's something that's embedded. It's the automatic reaction where you have to kind of catch yourself and say, no, she don't gotta listen if she don't want to, just like you don't gotta listen if you don't want to. And no matter what type of societal things reinforce it, you have to ascend above it, right? Like, you have to elevate above it.
That's exactly true. I mean, women doing what they want is still like such a radical thing. Like, even when people come to me for advice, and I'm not really, I don't consider myself that person, but sometimes they do. And a lot of times the answer is as simple as, well, what do you want to do? I didn't think about that.
Right.
That's the first thing you should probably think. Well, what do you want? I don't know. I'm in this relationship with my boyfriend, and he says this, but my friends say this, and what do you want? Oh, it's very radical. Well, a lot of women really do not think about what they want first. It's not the way you're socialized. To be nice is to put other people in front of your own wishes. To prioritize others. To
be nice.
And the way that we're and the way we teach little girls to be nice, right? So if you come up to a little girl and you want to hug her and she says no, you'll hear a parent go, "Oh, be nice." Right. Which means, I don't want to be touched right now, but I got to let this person hug me so I don't offend them. Right. Right? That's dangerous as hell. I don't want to raise a nice girl. I want to raise a kind girl. I want to raise a woman who is kind and affable and compassionate and can have empathy for other people. But screw that. Yeah. So you have to imagine that those little lessons that we're learning, even when we're little girls, turn into big lessons where you're learning to put other people's needs before your own.
Right. Yeah. So the answer to where my hug at isn't a begrudged hug. It's if you want a hug, yes. If not, then that's fine.
Though, like.
No, that's why it's like it's just funny, and I think there's it's just all those types of interactions are funny because we're all, even if somewhere in the back of our minds something is like inherently telling us, yo, this is fucked up. Yeah. Everybody just acts within the norm, which is, all right, uncle, come on. Come on. You know, come bother me. I'll allow you to bother me now. Yeah. You know, when it's fine if they don't want to be bothered. So these are a lot of, I think what you do is fascinating work. It's also complicated, and it's very intricate in the ways that you have to dismantle
so many
society and your own mental thinking. You're fighting a war on multiple fronts.
Oh, absolutely. And the funny thing is, you know, I always say my work is not for everybody. Mm-hmm. I am not the McDonald's of feminine power. You are not going to come and go to my website or my courses and get this quick shot of everything's great, or
the feminism one sheet.
Tap into your inner goddess. Like, it's not that shallow, all of that stuff. You know what I mean? And it's not going to be for everyone. The people who connect with it find it life changing. You know, but there are other people who hear what I have to say, men and women, and they're like, "This is some foolishness." Okay, it's not for everybody. I'm really good with that.
Right. Yeah, I think that's when we can accept that there are alternative ways of thinking that won't affect us in any way negatively, won't harm us, won't damage us, but people can think what they want to think or won't damage others, then you can coexist. You don't have to always agree.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly, I mean, it's just, you know, I'm always struck by why people are so offended by opposing ideas. You know what I mean? I mean, and we can talk about that just, you know, the grapevine, you know, some of the feedback, most of the feedback from the grapevine has been good, but I've gotten some vehement feedback, particularly from men. And it's like, well, why is the way I think this person that you'll never meet in your life, I'm not interested in you. So you calling me, you know, this and that. I don't care. I'm not trying to date you. Right. You'll never date me. Why is what I'm saying such an affront to you? Like, why are you so offended?
Ayesha, when you tell us that broke boys are a benefit from marriage as opposed to that still has me, that viral clip still has me in stitches to this day, because man, you want to talk about hit dogs hollering, I thought it was a kennel worth.
Can you understand? I still don't understand why people were so offended. Number one, when I said it, I thought that was common knowledge. Like, I thought that it was common knowledge of why we had monogamy. I thought we knew that, like, monogamy is not like somebody woke up one day and was like, you know what, women really would like to have their happily ever after. Let's throw away our polygamous ways. Like, I thought that was common knowledge, one. And two, it's just also common sense that in a polygamous society, if the wealthiest 10% of men can take multiple wives, like the bottom 20-30% ends up alone. It's literally just musical chairs. Right. You know? So I was just like, I didn't understand. And they started kind of dubbing it like, you know, monogamy is for broke men. And it's like, it does. It does help broke men. It gives you a shot at some pretty great women you probably wouldn't have a shot at. And it makes it so that you won't be an incel for the rest of your life. And it creates more stable societies, because when you have a whole bunch of like men who aren't getting it and don't have any prospect of getting it, and they're already broke, they get really angry, and it becomes eat the rich, you know? So there's a lot of, you know, reasons why we have a monogamous society, and there are advantages of monogamy, of course, for women as well. Right. But I just didn't, I was nerding out. I was like, I was legitimately shocked, and it goes viral all the time. And I think a lot of people misinterpret it. They see me and they assume I'm saying like, you broke men. And like, no. I literally, all I was saying was literally like, monogamy is so that all men, even the broke ones, can get married.
Right. I think if people, you have to watch the episode because your build up to the energy that you emitted when you gave that statement, it built over time. That's the first thing. And second thing is something that ever since I've read it in a bunch of financial books, self-help books, all these things, is something that I've always latched onto. A lot of people are walking around here with a scarcity mentality and not a mentality of abundance.
Amen.
Where abundance meaning there's enough for everyone. There can be 500 Ayesha Faines doing similar work and everyone can eat. Because Ayesha puts out courses and gets money that she doesn't want to be tacky and say that she's balling out here. I'll say it. I appreciate tackiness. So she doesn't want to say that, right? But just because she's doing well doesn't mean that I'm gonna be broke for the rest of my life because of her taking away opportunities. And I think that's one of the biggest mental and emotional hurdles, especially as men, that we have to overcome, because a lot of our worth is tied to production and wealth and being able to support a family and being able to have a tangible measurement of success. So, we fight through it every day of our lives. We're human. That's the other thing people gotta understand. We're human, right? So I remember my whole media journey. I would see people get opportunities and I'd say, the fuck?
And so did I.
I'm doing all of this. I'm doing all of this. I'm working out here. But the difference is, how do you respond? Do you react or do you respond? Do you go on social and talk about XYZ, or do you get back in the lab and just keep plugging away? Some stuff is legitimate, but as a whole, those opportunities didn't just end after those people received them. There's multiple more. And
absolutely.
And I think another thing is accepting, if it ain't for you, it ain't for you. If five of the most available, attractive partners are with this one man in a polygamous nature, that doesn't mean that there was only 5 women that was available to you. There is others. And hey, if you want those opportunities, you need to build yourself up to get those opportunities. You know?
A powerful word. You said a couple interesting things. One, in terms of just the career thing, that never ends. That seeing someone else and being happy for them, but at the same time being like, damn, like, you know what I mean? I'm just sitting here, standing still or whatever. It's just, you have your good days, you have your bad days. But there's a value in preparation. And so for every day where you haven't got what you think is your big break, because you are always accelerating, even if it's not fast enough for you, you are getting stronger, you're getting better, you're getting more knowledgeable. And there's a value in that, because I wouldn't want success too soon, because I wouldn't know what to do with it and I wouldn't be able to sustain it. And that's the thing that people don't recognize, that sometimes it's a blessing that you haven't had your big breakthrough yet, because that means that when you do get it, you are going to be more prepared for it. And then also with just the last piece you said about like men and women, like realizing there's more, like this gets to that level. I think that's the thing that men and women don't think about. It's kind of like, set your intention of, what you would like to have, but then also stop and ask that question of, am I good for that person? It's one thing to be like, I want this, that, and the other. But then when you stop and say, am I good for that person? And it's not as simple as do I look like a Victoria's Secret model? Because a lot of people, everybody's not looking for that, right?
Right.
But it's just like, this person that I want this generous person, but am I generous? Am I always trying to get over on people? Am I always trying to undercut people's worth? Am I out here, whenever I see somebody shining, I say, oh no, she's not all that? Or am I out here trying to get, I see someone has something out, hook me up, let me get it for free. Like, you know what I mean? Am I generous? So why do I want a generous person, right? Or I want a spiritual person, but am I spiritual, right? I want a person that is, successful, but do I feel successful? You know what I mean? It's not like you have to be like, the most important, but do you feel, good at where you are? Like, I think those are conversations we don't always have with ourselves, that it goes both ways. And I think when you get to the point where you are aligned, and this is just life in general, when you're aligned with whatever it is you desire, it will present itself to you. But sometimes you do have to stop and say, like, am I the person, this is the person in my dreams, and I the person of their dreams?
Right. Because, you know, it's not a one-way street. That is a two-way street, and there's a lot of traffic coming your way. So you need to be able to navigate that and be that traffic cop, for lack of a better term, to control the traffic. I think a lot of reasons why people don't do that is because it's scary. It's terrifying. And one thing that this quarantine allowed me to do was to look in the mirror and ask myself the tough question. You have to Oprah yourself in terms of putting yourself, or for these times, you have to red table talk yourself. Like even if Jada had to take herself to the red table, sometimes we got to take ourselves to the red table of our lives and ask those questions. You have to, because that's sometimes you are the only person that can ask and answer the questions, the certain difficult questions, because you can ask other people, you can talk to other people, but it may be a answer that you can only answer to yourself. And once you have those answers, then you have the responsibility to enact the change, to be the person that you want to be. Or you just look at yourself and you say, "It's who I am. We're going to keep it moving. All right. And then, you just move it that way." But
facts on facts.
Miss Faines, that's a lot. That's a lot to take in. That's a lot to take in. And you're doing a lot of great work, but we need to see how your work can benefit us on a macro level, which is us getting into the official Pass the Message segment of the show. So these are easy questions for you, because, you know, you talking about Pericles and Xerxes and all these people and Amon Ra and shit, like you here. So these questions should be simple. You know what I mean? We are not uncovering the Rosetta Stone or anything like that. All right.
All right.
So first, what's one skill that you have in your profession that you feel can transfer to us, that we can use in our daily lives to excel?
Know how to tell a good story. That's the one takeaway that I got from news. I learned how to tell a compelling story. There's the events that happened, and then there's a story you turn it into. And what you need to do, and for every story, there's a gist, there's the thing that the person has to get, and you have to be able to tell a story in a way that captures someone's attention. If you can do that, you can do anything. If you can tell a good story, you can tell people the story of who you are. When you're on a date, you can tell a good joke. You can sell a product. You can do absolutely anything if you can tell a good story. Right. That's something that's been a theme of a lot of interviews that I've had recently, just in general, all throughout everything that I do. And one thing I'd add to that, don't bury the lead in the story of yourself. That's the key. And honestly, that is to always start. So I learned in news, you always start with your most compelling thing. If it's a soundbite or a video, what have you, you open with that. And the rest of the story unfolds following your most compelling thing. And I think that's honestly the secret to telling any good story. Right. Yeah. Get my attention from the beginning and make it quick. Grab it, hold it, and don't let it go until the story's over. Don't tell it for too long. Right. Yes. oh yeah, that's it. That's the one I'm still getting to mention, because I'll be giving the footnotes. I'll be giving the, the answer. Listen, because it's like, I don't want to leave everything on the table. But now it's funny, because it's when I shorten stuff, people be like, well, that's it. I'm like, damn, y'all gotta pick one side. You gotta pick which way you want me to tell it. So tell me next. What's a message that somebody passed to you, a story, a saying, an anecdote, a quote that you use in your daily life and that you've shared with other people? Sure. One of my favorite ones was when I was a junior in college, and I had somehow talked my way into this meeting with the vice president of talent acquisition for a major network. And so she and I are talking, and she's looking at my tape, blah, blah, blah. And she says to me, this is a hustle. And she's like, it's not going to be about where you went to school, what you did, how many years. This is a hustle. This is about like who basically can distinguish themselves and outthink the next person. And she obviously was referring to the media business, and she's absolutely right. But I think about that in life, because when I think of hustle, I don't think about hustle in terms of trying to swindle people or get over on people. I think of being resourceful. And I think that if you're resourceful, you can do anything. And the reason why it's helped to think of my career and everything as a hustle and in a test of my resourcefulness and my will versus as just a meritocracy is because if you think of it in terms of if I do this and I learn this and I do this and I will get this, you will be let down every single time. But if you think of it in terms of I got to be good at what I do, I have to be smart, I have to be forward thinking, and I have to be persistent, I got to hustle, then, that's how you really start making moves for yourself.
That's real.
And that's what I share a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. Tell me one thing that you do in order to take care of yourself, perform self-care, stay healthier, anything that you do, one thing that you do.
One thing, there's so many, but I guess one thing is I run just about every day. When I go for like 2 days without running, I start to feel very antsy and like a ball of nerves. So I find running to be like moving meditation for me. It's very zen for me. And obviously it's good for the body and stuff like that, but it's very zen for me.
Yeah. So you try to run every day?
Yeah, I run about every day. I live in a very scenic place, so it's a nice little run. And another thing, probably you asked me for one, is probably that I don't watch a lot of TV. Like I mentioned that earlier. I think that actually really might be the thing because I find like when TVs are on, I find it to be very distracting and irritating to me. I do have some shows that I like, but I'll just watch that show, on like Hulu or Amazon or whatever, like after the fact, but like very rarely do I watch television. And I think that probably helps me maintain a certain level of calm and control over what images and moods I'm exposed to. So I just feel like I'm very open.
Okay. So ask you some quick rapid fire questions, some one word answer, and you let us know why. So first off, what's one thing during quarantine that you realize that you can't live without?
That I can't live without?
Yeah, that quarantine made you realize you can't live without.
Maybe music. Even when I'm like kind of lonely, because I do get lonely sometimes. I put on like good music and I realize it can actually like switch your mood like that. The right playlist, it doesn't matter what you're going through.
So what song, what's a song, not even a song, what's a artist or a genre of music where if you don't listen to it, you can't be friends with that person? If we don't listen to it, then we can't be friends with you.
Oh, see, that wouldn't be fair because I would have no friends.
Is it salsa?
No, because I feel like my ears are so different than my rest of my peers. But I love the Isley Brothers. And I have some friends who listen to Isley Brothers, but I also really love Diana Ross. And I have my Diana Ross playlist that put me in an exceptionally good mood because if you actually get into her discography, all the music is super positive and about love and happiness and all that stuff. But I recognize that like we're millennials and it's 2020 and most people are not listening to Isley Brothers and Diana Ross playlists. So I can't judge other people, but I guess if you were to poo-poo it, like if you were to be like, now Isley Brothers, we absolutely could not be friends.
Gotta fight at that point. Yeah, I get that 100%. Yeah. What's one party game that you are the GOAT in?
Oh, what's the one where you guess the word?
Taboo.
Yeah, I'm great. Like I'm. It's not even fair. It's actually not fair. Like I murder people. It's not fair.
Are you? First of all, 9 out of 10 Black people that have been on this show have said taboo, which is hilarious. But are you better at guessing the words or getting people to guess the words? I'm
pretty good at guessing the words, but I'm great at getting people to guess the words.
So you give good clues.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And finally, give us a good, because you don't watch TV, so give us a good book recommendation.
Oh, a good book recommendation. Let me look. What am I reading right now?
I thought you read books, Ayesha. I thought you read mad books. Why you gotta think about the books? Why you?
I don't want to like show for you, but then I'm surrounded by books right now, so I'm literally trying to like find the one that I think would be great. You know what? I always recommend.
It could be something you're reading right now.
One of my favorites in general that I just recommend is Bell Hooks Communion. I really think I love that book, and a lot of people ask me about book recommendations, and if it would mess up the shot, but I would show you. I'm literally surrounded by about 500 books right now. I love Bell Hooks because she is one of the few people who talk about love and power, and the idea that in a lot of relationships, in order for women to get love, they have to give up some power. And how do we find love that is empowering and allows us to be ourselves and flourish? And she's one of the few people who go there and really explores a lot of the concepts that I am passionate about. So Communion, also all about love. Those are two of my favorites. Actually, I'm rereading All About Love right now, so I think it's over there. So yeah, those are two recommendations.
I like that. I've been going through. I spoke to a lot of people about how I feel like I didn't get the full impact of the works of Black people in America, because I feel like I got like the generals, the commercial, like the MLK, the Malcolm X, but like people like Bell Hooks, Toni Morrison, Asada Shakur, Angela Davis, like those type of things that people always reference, and I'm like, what would y'all be reading? So I always go back and I read certain stuff, and it's to see the cyclical nature of history through what people have written decades ago.
Yep, and they're still writing the same stuff.
Like I just recently read Asada's biography, and it feels like the same exact things that are going on today were going on 40, 50 years ago. And it's nuts. And to hear the way in which they speak and their what's the word? Their hope and desire for change, and how it would be different afterwards, and what they're trying to do. And it's just like, whew.
I mean, it goes even back to Sojourner Truth. Was asking a lot of the same questions that we're still asking. And every generation has their women that were willing to ask the good questions. And it just shows that it's really hard to get to the answer.
Yeah.
You know, we're still fighting a lot of the same battles. And maybe we'll never get to a place where we go, whew, I'm glad that's over. Racism is done. Sexism is done. Patriarchy is done. Poverty is done. Whew, we good. Okay, what next? To the moon. Like, no, like we'll never get to that place. It'll always be probably periods of progress and complacency. And there will always be people who have to ask those questions and get the balls rolling.
It's a fact.
Yeah.
Well, Ayesha, thank you. This was great. This was awesome. This was excellent.
As always.
Where can the people find you? What you got going on next? Let us know everything.
Okay. You can always find me at womenlovepower.com. That's my platform. I'm also on Instagram, Ayesha K Faines. You know, I keep the grid cute, but there's always action in the stories. I'm on Twitter at Ayesha K Faines, and YouTube at Women Love Power. And as I was telling you before, I do have a column coming up, and I'm going to leave it at that. If you follow me, you will get more information on that. But I think people are going to like some of the things that I have to say.
Okay. That's what it is. I love it. It sounds like you got a lot of things going on. Can't wait to hear about it and can't wait to read it. So that does it for us. Once again, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, tell a friend to tell a friend. You can follow us everywhere at Past Message Show on YouTube as well. Do all of the call to actions that I said. Do it twice. It's all right, just in case you mess up the first time. So until next time, take all these words home, think it through, and when you're done, pass the message. We'll talk to you soon.